DC. I wanted to, of course, begin by thanking our local elected officials present. We did send out a very late notice, and I apologize to those who weren't able to join us. We may have some of them joining us shortly. I do see Senator Jim Moylan present. Senator, thank you so much for making time. I also want to, of course, recognize our media partners for being present with us again this evening, your morning, and for making your media platforms available for us to, of course, not only communicate directly with you, but with your listening and viewing audience. So that being said, if there are no opening items from anyone present on the call, I'll go ahead and begin. So we've had a number of issues on our island with respect to the funding that we received under the American Rescue Plan, particularly the state and local funding and the status of that state and local funding with the, the EIT, the non-entitlement units, funding for the hospital. And we also had a question from our speaker regarding the earned income tax credit. So we took the initiative to reach out to U.S. Treasury to get actual clarity on some of the items that have been unclear. And I wanted to take this opportunity to bring the island up to speed on the clarity we are getting from Treasury, and to also just be very transparent about how that clarity that we're getting from Treasury is not jiving with the communications we're getting from the administration. And we could also have a discussion about that to try and get to the bottom of, what's the actual status of these funds and what we can do to work together to try and get a real-time answer on where everything is at. First and foremost, I want to begin with the earned income tax credit. The speaker reached out to our office and she asked if we can clarify whether we are supposed to be receiving any EITC reimbursements this year, 2021, for tax year 2020, or if the EITC reimbursements were accruing under the 2021 tax collections to be paid out in 2022. Based on our clarity from Treasury, Guam will receive for tax year 2021, this tax year, and not for tax year 2020. So we are not expecting any kind of EITC reimbursements for 2020 to be coming in during 2021. It should be coming in next year, 2022, for this current tax year, 2021. So we're going to need first the 2021 taxes to be paid, those amounts to be reconciled, those EITC figures to be determined. Once those EITC figures are determined, they'll be put to Treasury, and then Treasury will reimburse Guam for the EITC expenses for the 2021 tax year. On the subject of non-entitlement units, this was a major issue. This was, of course, brought to our attention by Senator Moylan when he requested clarity on trying to get funding directly to our grassroots communities. And over the course of that conversation, it was brought to light that there were actually 3 different funding pools that made its way to Guam under the American Rescue Plan, specific to funding going into government entities for their use. The first, of course, was the state and local funding. That's the funding that we are very familiar with, at least in terms of the amount. And that's the $553 million that is under the discretion of the governor. The second amount is a $32 million allotment that came to Guam as a county allocation that is also under the discretion of the governor. And the third amount is supposed to be a non-entitlement unit funding that's supposed to go to, to put it plainly, the mayors were supposed to receive that according to the governor's office. In our initial communications, we brought up the fact that the county funding, the $32 million, should go to the mayors. And then the governor came back and countered, saying, no, that's not for the mayors, that's to the local government because we don't have quote unquote counties. So they're supposed to receive the non-entitlement unit funding. So we reached back out to Treasury, we asked for clarification, and apparently Treasury is operating under what the administration is communicating to them. And according to Treasury, in May, the administration received the $553 million in May, and they received the $32 million in county funding. And the administration made it plain to Treasury that there is no county funding. That funding was therefore now under the administration's jurisdiction for the entirety of the island. So technically, the amounts that they have for total discretion under the governor is not 553 million, but actually 553 plus 32.6. So it's actually 585.6 million. We further inquired as to the non-entitlement unit funding, and we said, okay, well, if the counties are not going to be going directly to the municipalities, the governor is saying that they want to use the non-entitlement unit funding for the mayors. And so we asked, what's the status of this funding? And apparently, Treasury already remitted the non-entitlement unit funding. They remitted that funding back in June. So all of the money has been received by the local government. The NEU funding was broken into two tranches, a total of 17.6 divided by 2. So they received 8.8 million in June of this year, and they're going to receive another 8.8 million in June of next year. But the 8.8 million has been in the bank and sitting since June. And so we inquired as to what the status is of this NEU money and what's causing the delay in getting it to our mayors. And Treasury's communication back to us was, and I'll quote, Guam received half of its total NEU allocation of 17.6 million on 6/16/2021, and the territory was holding it until Treasury provided further guidance on the allocation process, given that Guam does not have any NEUs. Treasury recently provided guidance to Guam on the funding, which reallocated the funding to the county of Guam and allows the county to use funds for eligible uses. So this is where things get really, really strange. The governor was saying the administration, their officials, and you folks in the media actually interviewed them. They were saying that the county money isn't going to the mayors because it's supposed to go only to Guam, and the NEU funding is supposed to go to the mayors. But what Treasury is being told is that we don't have NEUs and that money should go to the county allocation. And so the question remains, where's the mayor money? Because if the administration is saying the county allocation is not for mayors, and if the administration is telling Treasury they want the NEU money to be classified as county money, then what's happening to the mayor funds? So in total, based on how everything now is being allocated, the total amount of discretionary funding that the governor is lump summing under her control is 602.6 million. Takes us right back to the $600 million state and local funding figure that we initially quoted you folks back when we reported the availability of these funds to the passage of the American Rescue Plan. I don't know what to tell the mayors exactly, other than the fact that we believe that the 32 million in county funding, based on the spirit of the law, should go to the municipalities. The non-entitlement unit funding, if they want to consider that county funding, should also go to the municipalities. If they're not going to allocate the original 32 million because it was originally county funding and they're holding firm that there are no counties on Guam, then they shouldn't be reapportioning the NEU funding into counties and at the same time telling the public and telling the mayors that the NEU funding is actually supposed to be going to them. So that's the status on that debacle. All the federal money is going to it's leaving the feds and going local, but where it's going based on the spirit of the law and based on how things are being interpreted at this time is functionally very different from what we're being told. And on that subject, I wanted to dovetail finally into the funding for the new hospital. We've been told since May, since the 553 million, the 585 million, 85.6 million was received, was that there's going to be amounts set aside for the funding of a new hospital. And we were told in the months since that time that the administration's waiting on guidance from Treasury. And we've been told that over and over again, they're not going to use the money, they're waiting for Treasury to issue guidance. So we reached out to Treasury and we said, hey, there's $300 million in relief money that our governor is sitting on and she's waiting for guidance. Where's this guidance? And Treasury came back and said, please note that Treasury is not pre-approving proposed expenditures or calculations of revenue loss. They're basically saying Treasury is not going to be giving any special guidance. They said very specifically, we encourage state and local leaders to work within the current framework of the interim final rule and frequently ask questions and consult with counsel as needed to make decisions that comport with the current guidance to evaluate whether a particular expenditure is an eligible use of funds. So we've been told, our local leadership has been told, our people have been told, our media partners have been told over and over again that we're waiting for some guidance from Treasury, and Treasury's not giving that guidance. So there is there's a serious lack of clarity, to put it nicely, on why exactly this money continues to be held up. Those are the three main items on the Treasury issues that we've been able to clarify. EITC, non-entitlement units, and hospital money. And I use the word clarify lightly. I guess we've been able to get more information on, and I wanted to make that information available to our media folks, to the public, and to our local leadership. And I'll go ahead and pause here for any questions from those present on the call. We'll go ahead and yield first to local leadership present. I do see, and staff, if you can correct me if we had anybody else enter, I do see Senator Moylan, and Senator Moylan, I'll go ahead and yield to you. Did you have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Congressman, for the information. No questions, but of course, I do appreciate your clarification with the U.S. Treasury. Specifically, I was concerned about how we're going to be able to pass this money on to our mayors. Based on our last conversation that you were able to have with us and Mayor Alec, we brought that issue up regarding the $32 million to the governor, and we were clearly told that the money is coming or will be paid. The mayors will be paid. Since that time, we've had our conversation, and since the governor has made that statement, I believe the mayors have not been paid. And they're wondering when they're going to receive this funding from the American Rescue Plan to help their villages. I'm extremely disappointed to hear that the reason why this money is not going directly, the $32 million nor the 17.6, is because of what our administration has told the U.S. Treasury. It seems like the federal government wanted to do the right thing, and we were trying to express to the governor that it is the right thing to do. The intent was to pass this money down to our counties, so we don't have it specifically as addressed as a county. But these are our villages, right? Though we're connected by roads, these are our mayors that know how to spend the money where it's most needed and could really use this funding. But to learn now that the U.S. Treasury Department was told by our administration, by our governor, to say, no, just put it all in one pot. That's extremely disappointing. I plan to find out more from the governor why this is happening. I plan to ask the Mayor's Council also. We need to do something about this. The 36th Guam legislature has been disappointed with the governor's stance on how she addresses to utilize the American Rescue funding. I understand that the Organic Act does give her the authority, but we still need to work together. And if the governor is closing us out, the senators, and closing the mayors out as well, how is that working together? And most recently, the governor is now again with the National Governors Association Conference, and is one of her comments is basically insulting the 36th Guam legislature by saying that I'm glad they have no. Basically, I'm glad the senators have no say in how this money is going to be spent. You're using taxpayers' money to go that far, to go in front of all the national governors over there to insult the legislature. This isn't how we work together and being transparent to the people of Guam. The legislature is a co-equal branch of government. and the people come to us for answers. And we reflect those questions and we pass measures to help the response to the governor so they can hear the people's voices. I appreciate, Congressman, that you are doing all this and finding the information out for us, because I don't see how we would have known this without you asking directly to the U.S. Treasury. When we ask the governor, we don't get these kind of answers. But with your assistance, now we're knowing much more. And this is the disappointment I have with this administration. We wouldn't have this type of back and forth if we could just have been transparent. So I want to thank you, Congressman, for this information, and I look forward to driving this further and getting the answers from the governor. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Congressman.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. And just for clarity, you know, we're not looking to present a contrarian view. As a matter of fact, I would much rather prefer that we don't have to go in and get this kind of clarity. I think it would be better for all of us who have responsibilities to the public, and for our media, who has a responsibility to report accurately to the public, to be able to just get the information that we're requesting, and not having to go back and re-clarify or reconfigure or ask for a different or go directly to the source to ask for them to help us understand what the reality is. And it's troubling, to say the least, that lack of transparency is one thing, but a deliberate attempt to obfuscate and to mislead is another. And right now, absent any kind of evidence to the contrary, the communications we're getting from Treasury are actually contrary to what's being shared with us by the administration. I'll go ahead and pause there and turn it over to our media partners. I do not see any other